Our guest today is Susan Licate. She is a partnership specialist with the United States Census Bureau, and we also have the County Commission President, J.P. Ducro, and we're talking about census and its importance. And Susan sent me an email with some information, like a flyer on why this is important, and it is important stuff, isn't it?
It is important, Bob, and thank you for having me on today. I do appreciate that, and the momentum is strong. We're excited here in Ashtabula County with JP and the other county commissioners. We are preparing for the 2020 decennial census, and decennial is just that, every 10 years. So since 1790, our Congress enacted through the Constitution to have a census, a count of all people and households every 10 years, and we have been doing just that. So we're preparing to take on the census here in Ashtabula County and ensure that everybody's counted once and only once and in the right place.
And this is also important because I understand we might be in danger of losing a congressman if the census isn't, in Ohio, if the census isn't high enough in the population.
Right, and so census data is what directs our congressional districting. And so as a matter of fact, we lost seats in the 2010 census. And so, when we look at the stakes are pretty high. It's not only our congressional districts, but our voting districts and such, and even right down to where our school buses stop. So it's all based on population count of an area, and we're looking to ensure that everybody in Ashtabula County is counted.
One of the things that I think is important about that representation and why we want to make sure not only everybody in Ashtabula County is counted one time and in the right place, but throughout the state of Ohio, is if we have one less person in Washington advocating for the needs of our state, that can have a big impact. That vote can make a difference in a lot of things, funding and other decisions that affect Ohioans. So we certainly are cognizant of that. But in addition, the impact of the census, the numbers that are derived from the census really impact funding for billions of dollars that are dispersed throughout the United States. And there's been some estimates provided that for every person that is not counted in the census, it can cost a community about $2,000 a year per year for 10 years. So it's a very big number when you talk about, maybe just 10 households that decide not to respond to the census. Maybe they are, a mother and a father and 4 children, or say it's 3 children. So that's 5 per household, 10 households. That's 50 people not counted. At $2,000 is $100,000 per year for 10 years. That's $1 million that doesn't come to our community in the form of funding for Meals on Wheels, social service programs for seniors, school funding, roads and bridges, infrastructure funding, or there's a countless list of other things that are impacted through state and federal grants and programs that are determined by the data in the census.
And this is, what kind of information do they glean from this? I mean, I'm sure some people are thinking, I don't want the government intruding on my life. And so what kind of questions are asked? And is this specific to each person, or is it just kind of, cumulative data?
So the 2020 decennial census is easy, it's safe, and secure. And let me tell you how easy it is. It's only 10 questions, and they're very general questions. How many live in the household? What are the genders of those folks living in the household? What are their ages? Is English their primary language, or is there another language? So there are no questions that are there to trip somebody up, and they're the same questions asked of everybody in the United States from coast to coast. The sample questionnaire is available online at 2020census.gov. So if folks want to see what's on the census, they certainly are welcome to see that. It's so easy to respond. We're asking folks to respond either online or by phone first. That's the preferred way. We're excited because for the first time in the history of the census, online technology is available. And so, you can go online in the middle of the night, first thing in the morning, and you're
can't sleep.
You can't sleep, and you have insomnia. Fill out your census. Households across the country will receive that invitation to respond in early March of 2020.
They'll get a postcard saying do this, and then if you don't do it, you might get a phone call.
Well,
And-
no, we never call. So the process is you'll get that invitation to respond either online or by phone, and you make the phone call. The
Okay, I
census
see.
will never call you. And that's one of the items that we're really focusing on as we draw closer to the census is fraud and protection.
Absolutely.
We don't want folks giving away personal identifying information to unscrupulous folks out there. And so the census will never ask you for your social security number, will never ask you your political affiliation. You know, again, the census is nonpartisan. We're not Democrat, we're not Republican, we're not independent. We are the United States Department of Commerce, and we're only here to collect information to derive the data for statistical purposes only. We never share personal identifying information, not outside of the census, not with law enforcement, not with the FBI, not with ICE, not any other governmental agency outside of the United States Census Bureau, so that everything stays in-house. Not even the President of the United States has access to that personal identifying information.
And it's not released for 72 years.
Exactly.
That's one thing I wanted to mention. That's kind of important too. I was looking through census from 1940. My father was 11 years old, and there was this woman living in their house. My father had died, and my grandparents were long dead, and I never heard of this person living there. My uncle was still alive at the time, and it turns out that they took in boarders. They lived in the city. They took in boarders from the country so they could go to the local high school. So I would have never known that if I had looked at the 1940 census. So in a way, you're kind of giving people a little postcard to the future. But it's 60 or 70 years from now, so it's
72 years.
72, okay.
72 years. So, it would be amazing if I live to see that happen, where my information is released in 72 more years. I doubt that will be. But we do want folks to know, in all seriousness, that their information is private and it is confidential.
And if somebody calls you and says they're from the census,
They are not.
They are not, and it costs 20 Apple gift cards to get your
never.
Google
And so
Play.
That's why self-response is so important, because you stay in control of that information. And I know here in Ashtabula County, if folks, not everybody has broadband internet access.
I know there's a
Thank you.
commissioner that doesn't have it.
And with that said, we have partnered
Not JP though.
with our libraries across the county, and we're training the staff to help folks
Okay.
to go online to the right portal and fill out that information online.
So if you're not familiar with the computer, or you think this is the census and I don't want to screw it up, and you don't want to wait for the phone call, you could just drop in at your local library.
I'm going to keep correcting you. There is no phone call. Nobody is calling.
I'm sorry. You get that.
That's all right.
So the postcard. Yeah, I'm sorry. The postcard you got says either call us or go online to this website.
Right. And that's the preferred way to respond. And so we know not everybody wants to pick up the phone and call, and not everybody is comfortable online. So let me tell you, a week after that postcard arrives in your mailbox, you'll get a reminder. And that reminder will come in the U.S. mail, and it will say, hey, if you've not responded to your census, please do so. There will be a third touch point about 3 weeks after, another reminder in the mail saying, hey, and this is for the households that have not yet responded, to please go online or pick up the phone. And it's at that fourth touch point, then a paper form will come to your mailbox. So households that have not yet responded will receive that paper form.
And that's something to fill out and mail in?
Exactly. It's
So
the
is there a
same
point where
questions.
somebody comes knocking at the door?
There is, and so once a household has had those 4 touch points, the 3 reminders and then the census form in the mail, and there's still no response from a household, then we have a census taker that is working our area. And the beauty of this, and no matter how I say it, it never sounds fun, but we have local people and local jobs, and we're going to talk in a second about the local jobs still available.
Okay.
But we want local people and local jobs. We want people that know their neighborhoods to be
Sure.
the ones knocking on the door. And those are for the homes that have not yet responded. And they're asking those same 10 questions. And I'll tell you what, Bob, it's not for our census takers to challenge responses. So even if I knock on your door and you tell me you're a 90-year-old female, it is not for me to challenge that response.
Okay.
Even though I may see something different. It's only for me to record the response. And that is what our census takers are trained to do. As well, if they see something, they're not trained, nor is it their role to say anything. So we're only there to knock on the door to gain the response for the census. And again, we don't share that information with any other entities or agencies within the government. It's only for census information.
And I think it's important to know that the census takers take an oath that, you know, if they see criminal activity taking place, they are not permitted to, you know, report that. That's really not.
Well, like child
it's not
abuse or
their
something,
role.
no? Or
And we have taken a lifetime oath of
Wow.
privacy
It's like
and
a priest.
confidentiality. It's and it goes both ways. I mean, our folks are not trained to be in those situations. They're not law enforcement, so you know, it's just not the work that they're there to do.
Let's talk about the jobs for a minute, because I want to make
Sure.
sure we have time to mention that. If you go to 2020census.gov/jobs, there are still, you have the ability to fill out an application and be considered for positions. We believe there's still lots of positions available that for jobs starting in January. $16 an hour, full or part-time, between 10 and 40 hours a week. Flexible schedule, you can work evenings or weekends. And as Susan said, we really want local people to fill these positions, not only so it can help with the finances of local residents, but so that those funds that they earn will stay in our community.
Sure.
And also, we believe it will result in better responses from the census if local people are coming to do this than someone from out of town who may not be familiar with the area or nobody knows.
But so it'd be nice for the Census Bureau if somebody comes knocking at the door and saying, Mary, how are you today? Is George still working at the railroad? And your kids out of college yet? Oh, they're 40. Oh my gosh. You know that.
Yeah, and you know, that's wonderful if they know folks at that personal
Right.
level. And you bring up a great point. We'll only ask and record the questions that are on the census. So
Right.
any other information that, you know, if you and I are chatting and you're telling me about other things that are going on in your life, that's still personal and confidential, and it's not for me to record that information and submit it to the census. Only those 10 questions.
Now, there was an attempt to ask about if you are in the country legally. That will not be asked, correct?
Citizenship is not on the census. That's correct.
So, and I know there's people that just don't trust the government. If they're coming to my door asking questions, so I mean, how do you dispel the rumors about the people that are looking at kind of strange websites and?
I think it's education, and I think that's really why we're taking a very proactive stance this year. This is the first year that we've formed a complete count committee here in Ashtabula County, which was kind of a pilot program that was run at the last census, and it was very successful in many communities. So we have a wonderful coalition of people and organizations from all over the county that we're educating them about the census and working on projects and ways that we can get the information out. There should be an awesome video infomercial contest that some of the local high schools are participating in through their multimedia programs.
That's a good idea.
To help spread the word and get it out that way. So we're real excited about that coming out and being ready for the first of the year.
Didn't Ashtabula County dip under 100,000 at the last census?
I think our last census brought us down to, is it 94? I thought it was 97.
94,000.
Yeah, and we've had that debate. Are we really losing population, or are we just losing people responding to the census? And so we want to make sure that if there's more than 100,000 people living in this county, we want to make sure they're counted and show that our population is what it is shown to be.
And we've got a minute left, but kind of a point I want to make is people say, why do they want to raise our taxes for something? Why don't they all go out and get grants? Well, if you want government to get grants to pay for things, this is a place that shows you, what population you have. It's a big thing in getting grants.
Our socioeconomic levels of our population, the needs that we have, what language they speak in the community. There's a lot of things that are on that census that can drive resources to help some of the neediest people in our community.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll should have you back on early next year and kind of go over this a little bit more. And
we would love to. And if folks are curious, 2020census.gov.
Okay.
Full of information, as well as the portal link to apply for one of the many, many jobs that are available out there.
All right, excellent. Susan Licate and JP Ducro, thank you.